Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. It's me, it's Jono. I'm back delivering on that promised part 2 to the first video I did about a week ago now, which was the top 10 episodes of Doctor Who, in my opinion, of the modern era. This is part 2 to that, which is my top 10 least favourite episodes of the modern Doctor Who era. So it's going to have a slightly different feel to it. And it's going to be interesting, you know? It's going to be interesting to see the my feelings towards some of these. So I've got my list provisionally up. I'm ready. I hope everyone's keeping well, by the way. Safe and well, even though the world is sort of moving... Some areas of the world, particularly in the UK at the moment, are moving away from lockdown into a more transitional phase. Everyone keeping safe, keep well, keep 1 or 2 or however many meters apart we need to keep at the time. And just be kind, you know? Just be happy and kind. So, that's my Jono message of the day. Anyway, speaking of kindness, we're not going to be too kind to some of these episodes at the moment. Without further ado, these are my top 10 least favourite modern Doctor episodes. So to kick off at number 10, it is Love and Monsters from Series 2. Love and Monsters is a strange one for me because of all the episodes on this list, it's the one, as you would have probably have known from the order of the list and it being in 10th, it is not my least favourite of the 10. However, there's lots of issues for me with this episode. It is a Doctor Light episode, though I don't hold anything against it for that, because things like Turn Left and Series 4 are Doctor Light, and they're some of the best episodes of the David Tennant era. The issue was around the plot and the pacing as well for me. So, the thing about the plot is it sort of revolves around the fact there's this organisation called Linda, who are like the equivalent of train spotters, but for the Doctor. And they're trying to work out how they can learn about and interact and observe the Doctor when he lands in London, right? And then this guy, I think his name's Victor, comes in, who basically turns out to be the Absorbaloff, played by Peter Kay, who's saying they should get a bit more serious and teaches them like spying techniques and stuff. It's not the best idea for an episode in my opinion. It's also basically a lot of rehash. There's loads of recovering of scenes from different angles. So the main character in this episode is a guy called Elton, who's the blonde bloke. So there's like different framing of things from Rose and the End of the World, Christmas Invasion. There's different framing of things we've already seen from a different perspective. So I suppose it's partially interesting from that point of view, but it's not a very good Doctor Who episode. It's definitely filler, and it's definitely the weakest part of Series 2 in my opinion. The Absorbaloff itself was a really bad villain. Peter Kay did it no justice. It wasn't a great concept anyway. Though saying that, I did read online that it was like the result of a competition that schools put in. It was like a kid's design that won. They were only about 10. So I don't want to defecate on the design too much because it was from a child. But you can sort of tell that it's not been realised very well from that initial child inception stage to actually putting it on screen. And again, Peter Kay just isn't very good. I don't actually mind Peter Kay. I think he's a good comedian. I just don't think he's very good in Doctor Who. The things that the episode does have going for it are the relationships between the people in the Linda organisation. Elton's quite interesting as a character, and it's interesting to see that he has like this sort of backstory with the Doctor where he was there when he was very young, standing over the parents' dead bodies. So you've got that connection, and also the love interest for Elton. I forget her name. It's the lady with the glasses. Looks a bit like Velma from Scooby-Doo. She is absorbed at the very end by the Absorbaloff, and then when Elton breaks the cane, the compression field cane, and he melts away, the Doctor and Elton manage to capture some of her essence. Right at the end, they show that she survived as a block of cement, like a sentient block of cement. It's very weird, this episode. So I suppose it's a happy ending, or as happy as it could have been. Yeah, Love and Monsters. It's a weird one. I don't hate it, but I don't really like it that much either. It just exists. It's very fillery for me. Bad villain. Plot was stringy at best. It's made the list. Love and Monsters in number 10. Number 9 is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Now, you guys know from my previous video, and probably from the shirt I'm wearing, here he is, that Matt Smith is actually my favourite of the modern Doctors. So I don't like to look at any of his episodes negatively, but I have to try to look at this without rose-tinted glasses. And Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is a poor episode. What suffers the most for me, there's 3 areas. The first one, that annoys me for most of anything else, are those stupid robots. They're not comedic at all. I don't know who told them they were funny in this episode, because they're not. They're annoying and cringy as all hell. The robots walking around being like, no, you didn't do this. Oh, I thought I told you to do that. So the robots are terrible. The sidecast looked like they were picked from a random Doctor Who bucket somewhere of historical characters they haven't explored yet. And they went, oh, Queen Nefertiti, random big game hunter. Chuck them into the sidecast, because why not? They served no point. There was no real reason they should have been there. And there's no reason why they were selected for their skills over anyone else ever. They have all a history and they selected those two. Like, I didn't mind Rory's dad. He was okay. The third one for me was just like the plot itself was really weak. They had a frame of a plot, which was like there was this Silurian ship that left Earth eons ago because they thought the Earth was going to get destroyed. It's now coming back. The Silurians are all dead. They've been kicked out of the airlocks by the trader played by David Bradley, and these two robot henchmen. And David Bradley is one of the redeeming factors of this episode. He was very good as the trader. Kind of creepy. Interesting how money obsessed he was and what is trying to assign a value to everything. Yeah, they saved the ship, of course. David Bradley was actually killed indirectly by the Doctor because he sealed the ship up and basically sent it away with the tracker on so that the missile would blow it up. And when the Doctor does stuff normally, which is out of his character, like The Waters of Mars or A Town Called Mercy, it's like a big moment. But in this, it's just completely brushed over. The Doctor, although he didn't put a gun to someone's head and pull it, he basically set the death up. So those three factors combined, really, and the additional fourth factor of the Doctor's weird resolution there. It's a bit silly as well, just the dinosaur thing. You know, it's kind of cute. Triceratops is chasing after the balls, and it's sad it gets shot and killed, but is it a good episode? No, it's not. So number 9 on the list is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Number 8, it's another Matt Smith episode. It's Nightmare in Silver. What do I dislike about Nightmare in Silver? The biggest one for me, actually, is the Cyberman itself. This was the first redesign since the series came back in 2005. Visually, it's okay, right? I don't hate it. It's a little bit Iron Man-esque, but whatever. But it had really weird powers, which are never really explored. The big one for me was when it entered the room with that platoon of soldiers in, and it wanted the children. It just like hyper walked through super fast, and it showed the sequence of it like walking through a room of basically frozen people, picking the kids up and walking away. Since when was that a Cyberman power? Like, it never does that again. You think that'd be a real good skill to have strategically to take all your opponents out really quickly, but they never do it again. Just really weird. It made no sense. It sounds a bit nitpicky, but whenever I think of this episode, I think of that one scene and it really turns me off the episode straight away. And then I think, oh, I'll tell you what else was poor about the episode. The sidecast, starting with the kids. Clara's, kids that she babysits. The young girl was okay. She had a bit of emotion. She was sort of interesting. But the young boy in particular was basically like cardboard human of the year. He had no emotion at all. And actually, I'd argue that he had more emotion as a Cyberdrone than he did as a human. There's a line at the start where he's like, yes, I was one of the best people in my chess club at school. So, the sidecast also struggles. In conjunction with that, the platoon of soldiers sidecast weren't great. They were just like stereotypes, right? Embodied. There was like slightly larger man, geeky ginger kid, bossy woman, and then Porridge. Warwick Davis' character was okay. I enjoyed his character. If we're thinking about what I enjoyed about this episode, Warwick Davis, and I enjoyed Matt Smith in this one, particularly when he was playing against himself, the Doctor versus Mr. Clever / the Cyber Controller. The final thing I'd add as to why I dislike this episode is the pacing. It feels very slow to me, very clunky throughout 95% of the episode, and then it's rushed right at the end with the actual wrapping up of it. It's like, oh, Porridge reveals he's the Emperor. He says out loud, I'm the Emperor. A ship beams him to orbit, beams him out, planet blows up. They spent 40 minutes of the episode messing around with nonsense and splitting people off. It was just a real cop-out for me, the ending of it, so I'm not a big fan of Nightmare in Silver. It's number 8 on the list, Nightmare in Silver. Yeah. Number 7 is a tricky one for me. It's The Magician's Apprentice / The Witch's Familiar from the Series 9 opener. I say it's tricky because there's parts of this I actually really like, and most of them are in The Witcher's Familiar. I like the moments between Davros and the Doctor, and the bit of soul searching that they do. Even a bit where Davros opens his eyes, I have no issues with that. Some people despise that moment. I thought it was okay. I even like the bits between Missy and Clara in this, in the Dalek sewers. But my main gripes with this, to be honest, come from the Magician's Apprentice side of things. I can never overlook the fact that Stephen Moffat decided to do a scene with the 12th Doctor riding a tank, playing a electric guitar in like 16th century Britain, and then parading around that stupid arena with his terrible jokes and antics and showing off. It was terrible. And bear in mind, we'd seen a completely different kind of Doctor in Series 8, which was kind of like more stoic and serious. They completely stripped that out for the start of Series 9 and went down the ridiculous route of this. And that, in conjunction with the fact that like Missy was messing around in modern day, poking her head out of the screen, boinging around in some CG environment, freezing the planes in the sky. How did all this come together? Actually, when I've rewatched it, I have no idea how we got from Missy bouncing around her head and freezing planes in a tank in ancient Britain to being on Skaro. It actually blew my mind, but we got to that in an episode. So I suppose props should be given for getting us to that point, but it was messy, man. It was messy. On the rewatch, I didn't enjoy this two-part much at all. They tried actually with the cliffhanger between the two. With Missy's dead, Clara's dead, Vitalis is dead. Obviously, none of those three things happen. I also didn't like the idea behind stealing the regeneration energy. I get that Davros wanted to use it to restore himself, so I sort of get it from his point of view. He would want to regenerate his body. But you see the bit where like all the Daleks are getting powered up and there's the orange regen energy coming out of all of them. What was the end game with that? Because they power down, they've got the energy coming out, they power back up. But you don't ever see them being more powerful. Like, was it to charge their batteries? Are they more deadly now? What did the Daleks gain from that? Because in my head, I was also thinking, well, pre the Daleks becoming that mutated blobby form inside the shell, they were like human-like people. They were Khaleds back in the original series. Surely a regeneration of them would turn them back into that form? At least in my mind. So I don't know what they were looking to gain from that. Obviously, from a story point of view, it had to happen in conjunction with what we learned about the Dalek sewers to have a thing which overcomes them, right? The Dalek sewer concept as well was also a bit strange. I'm not a huge fan of anything that happened in this story, apart from the Dr. Davros moments. Yeah, it didn't get me very excited for Series 9, I'll be honest. It made me very confused and very worried that the Doctor had become this buffoon sort of character. So, yeah, number 7, I think, is appropriate. Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. Number 6 on the list is The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. The Series 6 Christmas special. This, again, it doesn't anger me, per se. It just annoys me that it was so boring. And a bit silly again as well. Like, Doctor at his worst is when it gets silly. You've got this whole thing of, like, the Doctor coming in and interacting with these kids who are sad because their dad, it's like set in World War II, was like a bomber pilot and he got killed. So I get the Doctor was trying to cheer them up. But then the rest of it, like, I'll be honest, I didn't rewatch this one because I couldn't find the energy to do it. But you get from that place where they sort of enter this Neverland ice world place. And then it moves on to the fact that there's these tree creatures that are trying to travel through time in a wooden ship they've created, which is also being guided by the emotional sadness of a woman from wartime Britain who somehow, whilst travelling through the time vortex, latches onto the bomber of her late husband and saves him. Have I got all of that? This one confuses me. The story was all over the place. The Doctor was a bit silly. I thought the concept was a bit silly. It's all a bit too convenient, as happened in most of the worst episodes of Doctor Who. Yeah, no love for this one, to be honest. The only bit that salvages it slightly for me was the interaction between the Doctor and Amy and Rory at the end, because he returns. You know, they believe that he's dead, and he's done that thing where he's like deleted himself from the universe, and he turns up again 2 or 3 years after the fact, and there's a nice moment where Amy's like, we always set a place for you, Doctor, even though you don't come to Christmas, and he's a bit emotional. the last like 3 or 4 minutes in that scene. Cool. The other 50 minutes of the episode, not so cool. So yeah, the Doctor Void and Wardrobe is not something I go back to rewatch. It's definitely on my top 10 least favourite list. Sorry, Matt, again. Hi guys, as the video was getting a bit long, I've got about 55 minutes of raw footage talking about my least favourite Doctor Who episodes. I thought best to split this down, so it's going to be a 2-part series. This is part 1. Part 2 will be released within the following week, so if you want to check that out, feel free to follow and subscribe to the channel, and check out my socials as well to see when it goes live. Cheers guys, see you for part 2.